You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. Mad World. Coach Sess here. I am specifically directing this to amateur MMA fighters who want to have a long career and potentially turn pro. Should you start with a local promotion? Should you go with a sponsored federation such as the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation? It's a lot of conversation and dialogue out there that says you should go this route if you want to be in the UFC. You should do this if you want to make it to the top of your game. So let's look at some pros and cons. One of the drawbacks to the local promotion that you have to keep in mind that it is a business, okay? And every promotion is different in terms of how they do business and different from state to state in terms of what they're allowed to do for the fighters. But the good thing is that you can negotiate, and usually that negotiation is tickets and the percentages on the tickets. So in terms of how many you sell, some have a tier system. You sell 10 and you get 10%. I'm just making an example. You sell 15 and you get 20%. And you sell 25 and you get 25%. All right, so they have a tier system. Some are just straightforward. Regardless of what you sell, you get 15%. Other perks that you might get are travel. They may give you gas money for travel, or sometimes they provide the travel for you, and they may give you a hotel stay, and that's usually a weekend stay, 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 nights. With a sponsored organization, there are going to be no ticket sales because usually these organization shows are usually in the bigger cities. They're further away. So they're not in every city. You may have a representative in every city, or every state rather, but you're not going to have a show in every state. So you have to travel a little further. So ticket sales are going to be a little, ridiculous because most of your fans aren't going to be able to make the show. And usually it's a longer stay because you probably have 1 or 2 days travel, and then the tournament is 2 to 3 days. And usually you go with a team. So there's not a lot of independent negotiation unless somehow you've earned a name or reputation for yourself. It's not going to be worth it for the organization to negotiate with you in that regard. The plus to that type of traveling is that you do travel in groups. So when you go to a different place, you're more likely to be safer. And then usually you have an agenda, so everything is a bit organized because you have time slots. You got to be here, you got to be there, you got to do your promos, you got to have your first matches, you got to recuperate, all those things. So you can look at that and say, okay, which one would I prefer? Would I prefer to have things kind of set up for me, or would I rather on the local level do all that footwork myself? Also on the local level, you can negotiate your opponent. You can negotiate based on experience, weight class, skills, and ability. The problem with it is they may not find an opponent for you because you're so specific until days before the event. And in a lot of promotions, local promotions, they usually have their own teams, and sometimes they cater to specific teams. So if you're in a weight class they don't really need, they're not going to really try that hard. And if you're in a weight class that benefits one of their teams, you may be set up. Okay? Nobody wants to say it, but promoters don't care about the fighters, no matter what they say. If you're not part of their organization, their network, their team, why would they care? Okay? So keep that in mind. When working with the local promoter, it's a business. And if you don't benefit his business, his bottom line, you're just an opponent. And as long as he makes his money, that's all he cares about. So, And that's a mindset that I'm going to try to teach you guys right now. It is okay. It is okay if they do not want to pay you for what you think you're worth. It is okay. What is difficult to accept is when they stop you from making money. So a lot of times, promoters don't like to listen to new ideas because they think they know all the ideas. They know all the ways. The failure with most promotions, and this is what you're going to have to learn when you negotiate with them, is they think they know more about the mixed martial arts and promotion business than anybody else. Now, here's the failing. They think they know more about business than anybody else. And those two concepts are different. Knowing everything you need to know about your industry is great, but understanding how business can be conducted in other ways to help benefit your business, most promoters I've run into just will do it their way, the old way. And a lot of them come from boxing backgrounds, and so they stick to the old boxing way of doing it. And there's number one reason is control. But that's another topic for another time. But I do need to say it because I want you to understand the mindset that you're dealing with when you try to negotiate. With a sponsored show, in terms of your opponent, here's the thing. You'll almost have an opponent early on, either because they're doing team versus team or they're doing a tournament format. So you're most likely going to have an opponent. The drawback, you won't know the exclusive background of that opponent. If he wrestled, if he boxed, if he's got 30 different fights before his first mixed martial arts fight. And you may be walking into your first mixed martial arts endeavor with no previous background in any athletic performance, and that's what you're up against. That's the drawback. And but you will have enough time to try to prepare early. Get in shape, work on your basic skills, because the basic's going to take you everywhere. No matter who you fight, you'll always have to decipher the basics, break his basics down and enforce yours. The advantage of staying with a local promoter is preparation. You can study your opponent. But the thing is, that opponent can study you. So it's just a matter of your process of, is your process in terms of looking at a fighter and breaking a fighter down and implementing a strategy better than theirs. Drawback to local promotions when it comes to opponents, fights will change. Yep, change of opponent at the last minute is highly likely. And it's mentally taxing. If you go through an 8-week camp and they've told you fighter A dropped out, fighter B dropped out, fighter C dropped out, it's a strong, emotion behind that where you feel like you want to drop out. You just get to a point and say, well, stop looking for me. I no longer want to be involved. And, and it can be heartbreaking. It can be heartbreaking if you have your mind set on something and then you start losing faith in that promotion and you start looking elsewhere. The problem with looking elsewhere, these habits that I talked about, how each promotion is different in terms of how they negotiate. You got to learn that all over again. You got to learn the different mindsets. In terms of a sponsored show, it's going to be difficult to study your opponent because if it's a tournament format, you don't know who you're getting the first round. And the goal is to get to the finals or to win it. So you don't know who you're going to be up against. So it's going to be difficult to study your opponent. But the good news is it's going to also be tough for your opponent to study you, which is why whoever is sharper, in my opinion, in the basic foundation in terms of techniques, basic foundation of their conditioning and their fight conditioning. So general conditioning is what's going to take you from day to day. And the reason I say that is because some of these shows, you have to meet a weight requirement per weight class and you have to make it every day. In other words, you have to weigh in every day of the tournament. If you are in fight shape, in other words, you can perform well, kick, punch, grapple, whatever it is you need to do inside of the enclosure, but you don't have a good lifestyle, you're going to gain weight or you're going to have to starve yourself between fights. And neither one of those situations is good because if you gain the weight, you got to lose it back if you want to stay in the tournament or you get disqualified. And if you're starving yourself, you're going to be weaker. So fighting in the tournaments
is good if you can maintain the lifestyle. So in other words, you shouldn't be losing a lot of weight before these events. You got to get into the habit of Frankie Edgar is probably just the best, in my opinion, when it comes to that. Just being close to the weight and being strong at that weight. There's a place in every aspect of this fight game where you are the most dominant person, and it's all about strategy, putting yourself in that situation. But let's look at it logically. Regardless of which direction you go in, the one thing you want is attention on your brand. At the end of the day, what you do with your body is what's going to get you your results and your reward at the end of the day. If you want a major contract, then you have to be a performer inside of that enclosure. Whether it's a ring or a cage, you have to be a performer. The reason Dylan Dennis can get into these higher organizations is because of what he's done in his arena in terms of jiu-jitsu. You take an Olympian like Daniel Cormier, it's because of what he's done in his arena. When they bring in world champion kickboxers like Overeem, it's because of what he's done in his arena. You know, any of these organizations who picked out some of these top-notch guys at some point in time, it's because of what they were able to do previously. They were able to put the spotlight on themselves some way, somehow. So the only difference now is that MMA is offering up its own avenues where you don't have to be a wrestler, kickboxer, boxer, jiu-jitsu guy, and all that other stuff. It helps. I won't take that away. We're not at the point yet where MMA across the board is so such a defined format that you don't need to train these other things. That you can just only do MMA. MMA is not this thing that you can just exclusively do just yet, because it's still in a refinement period where the coaches are getting better. We've got more former coaches, former fighters who are now coaches, more former fighters who are referees and authorities, you know, and it's working itself out. MMA is not a standalone product just yet. I'm Coach Sess, and you've had Words with the Mad Coach.